glad to have you here again for our second keynote speaker, if you will, for tonight's program presented by Humanities, Nebraska, and Chautauqua. And please do take a look at your program. Those organizations that help contribute to make this possible, please do reach out to them and let them know your appreciation for this event, and that is certainly appreciated by everyone involved. Okay, we're going to be moving on now to our next speaker, who is a leader of the Ponkas, and he will share his story with you, rooted in the love that a parent has for a child. Please help me welcome Chief Standing Bear.
Aho, Ewida Wangade, Ijaje, Wiwita, Ma-chú-nu-zhe, Punka, Badi, Punka Neoshinga, Ma-chú, Tomwangado. I give you greetings in my native tongue. Our greeting is that we are all related. I carry the name of Standing Bear, of the Bear Clan, of the Ponca people. That name, Punka, refers to the sacred head and pertains to our relationship with our brother and sister tribes from this area, up and down the great river, smoke on the water. Our name is the sacred head, some say, to point south. Our other relatives close to here, in these homelands, we call these lands Ni Ubadada-ke, swift running waters. Our neighbors, the Omahas, Umaha, the people that move against the current, they call their lands not too far away Ni-Badaska, means flat water. You may know it as the Platte River. And to the south, the children of the middle waters, Wajaje, the Osage, Quapaw, the downstream people, and Konze, or Kansa, the wind people. When I was born, this land was much different than it was today, before that iron horse that just passed us by. In those days, it didn't look like this. In those days, the bison were plentiful. The elk, the deer, the wolf, the spotted cat, all of those wonderful creatures of the animal nation that the Great Spirit Wakanda gave to us for our sustenance. But those times were to change in my lifetime. As a younger man, I witnessed all those laws by the United States government that would change everything. The Kansas-Nebraska Act, the Union Pacific Rail Act, the Homestead Act. To your people and to your ancestors, that was an important part of progress. And it was successful. It transformed this landscape from oak trees and the Indian grass and the bison grass and the switchgrass and all those things that the animals that God put here were meant to eat. Those acts brought your ancestors here to these lands. That Rail Act brought that iron horse, which brought more and more and more of you. The Homestead Act took those lands that were legally ours as indigenous peoples, stripped them from us, and gave them to you. So it's that shared legacy that we must share from here on out understanding of the truth of the real history of these lands. To best explain my people, our stories, our everything. And I want to share one of the most important ones. Sometimes we tell these to the little ones, but as we all know with any powerful parable, they're not just for the little ones. This is the story of the beginning before the beginning. In the beginning, our souls were like stars in the sky, thought but no form. And eventually, one of those stars in the sky, that soul, asked a question of itself. Who am I? And that star, that soul, went to its mother, the moon, and asked its mother, who am I? Oh, my child, the moon said, I was afraid that someday you would ask that question. Hurry, she said, go to your father, the sun, now, and ask him that. So that star, that soul, went to its father, the sun, and implored, Father, who am I? Oh, my child, he said, I was afraid that you were going to ask that question. Be careful with that question, because that question is the most important question we have as a soul. And with our teachings, that question transformed those stars, and they began a journey through that great river in the Milky Way. And soon there were 4 of those. Our stories say that we come into this world and back to heaven in 4s. And they came through the journey of the river of the souls. And when they landed here on this planet, they were guided by Venus, the morning star, to here. And when they landed, it was all covered in water. And those souls, those stars, took a different form. They took their first animal forms. And the first one was the turtle. And it admired the form that the Creator had given it. Noticed that its shell was hard and had webbed feet made for the water. Next was a waterfowl. Some of the tribes say it was a duck. Others say it was a crane. It too admired the form that God, Great Spirit Wakanda, had given it. Noticed that its wings could float, that those feathers could float on water. It had feet webbed like that, and knew that it could fly. Next was the otter. It admired this beautiful coat that the Creator, Wakanda, had given it. Powerful tail, same with its little paws, made for the water. Be a swift swimmer. But last, but not least, was the deer. And the deer noticed was not made for that water. And at that point, they had forgotten nearly everything that the Creator had given to them before their journey. But they remembered those key bits of knowledge that we as indigenous peoples cherish to this day. We're all related. Ugikiwade, help one another, be kind to one another. And they remembered those teachings, and they sought to help that deer. So they took turns. First, that turtle dove down into the waters, to the darky depths, slow. And that waterfowl, that duck or that crane, took flight in big long circles into the four directions, looking for something besides the water that might save them all and save the deer. Soon enough, the turtle rose up from the depths. Nothing. Down come that waterfowl. Lingay, they both said, I have nothing. Finally, that otter said, brothers and sisters, let me go. This powerful tail, swiftly I can go, while there's still time to save the deer. And down that otter went. That waterfowl grabbed to the nape of the neck of that deer to help lift it. The turtle went underneath, under the breast of that deer, and helped keep it afloat and alive. And just when they were about to give up hope, they see from the depths that otter rising, something in its little paws. And as it came, they knew that there was something important in there, something sacred. And that little otter put out its hands, and there was the clay of the earth, and presented it to the other animals, the first ones. And that turtle felt so bad that it had gotten these other souls into this new life and predicament along the great river, the journey of the souls. That turtle tucked that earth, put it on its back. And that's where the land comes from. To this day, many of the tribes, we call these lands Turtle Island. And if you ever hear our drums, we beat them to mirror the heartbeat of Mother Earth. As long as our drums are going, then Mother Earth is going to be alive. These stories are everything to us. We all cherish these stories. That's where we come from. That's where we go back to, the happy hunting ground, when our temporal bodies are gone. In my time here, I saw all those wonderful animals that God had given us had left. But soon came the time that we were to be separated from our lands. And by then I had assumed this role, a leader of my Ponca people. Truly, I was just the chief of my clan, of the Bear Clan. White Eagle was the main chief. Nuda Honga, the main Buffalo Bull. But I was next in command. And when the Indian agents came to us to tell us that we had to leave these homelands, Ni Ubadadake, the lands of the running water, the land of our ancestors, where the bones and the blood of our ancestors are buried so that Mother Earth knows us. We told him no. Kimball was his name. Ubadiug, I don't want to go. But they forced us to go down, put us on a train to go down there. And once we got to those lands, it was hot. Some of our other relatives had already been moved out of their homelands, the Osage, the Quapaws. We spent time with them. It was miserably hot, rocky ground. They said nothing would grow down there. We pleaded with that inspector to not force us to move down there. He had no mercy on us. Told us that we had to return. We wanted to go to Washington to talk to the Great White Father. We were told that that agreement said that we had to agree to these changes if we were to move, and we didn't want to move. We said that we would go out on our own to see the Great White Father. And he left us there, and we had to walk back up to these lands here. That was the first time. By the time it was all over, 3 times I walked from these lands to Oklahoma. There was very little that we could do to stop it. We implored with everything that we had to try to stay in these lands. They asked us to give up the bison, to give up fighting, to give up our religion, to become itinerant farmers, send our children to schools, to change the way that we dress. We did all those things. But it didn't stop the inevitable. And eventually, my people were forced to leave. And they drove us mercilessly down south. Not too far from our homelands here, our relatives, the Omaha, they saw us as we were leaving. They heard our cries, our tears, our pain. First one we lost was not too far from here in that little town you call Neely. And it was the daughter of Black Elk and Moonhawk, a white buffalo girl who passed away. And they wouldn't even let us bury her in our customs and our ways. And that broke our hearts. And I remember Black Elk asking the people in that town, those white people, please make sure that she's buried properly. Please make sure that she's not forgotten. And they did. They tell me ever since that she was buried there, that the good people of Neely come and make sure that her grave is taken care of and she's respected. They gave her a proper Christian burial, and the Poncas were ever thankful for that. So much had transpired to us by that point. The diseases that came with the flood of white people took its toll on us. Smallpox came in 3 big waves. At the beginning, they said there was 2,000 of us. Those 3 waves, 1800, 1840, 1860. There were 2,000 of us before. There were 200 of us when it was done. And if that wasn't enough, the hardships of going on that trail of tears. Along the way, we all lost our loved ones. Along the way on that journey, first, I lost my daughter, Prairie Flower. The very next day, a great big wind, a tornado, came through our camp. And that great wind came into my camp, and it spilled boiling water on my granddaughter. And God called her home. 2 days, I lost my daughter and my granddaughter. Did they allow us to stop and to grieve? No, we had to continue. Down we went further south. I lost my daughter to that tuberculosis illness. And soon it became apparent that my son, my heir, someday to become chief of the Bear Clan of the Sacred Head people, Bear Shield, it began to take him too. And we made it all the way to the warm lands down south by the Osage and the Quapaw. And God called him home too. Before he passed, he implored of me, Father, do not bury my bones here where there are no ancestors of ours. If you bury my bones here in the warm lands, my soul will be alone. Take my bones back home, Father, to our homelands on the banks of Ni-ubadadake, the land of the running waters with the green islands. Take me home. And what else could a father do? I quietly explained my situation to others in my clan, what was left of my tribe. And on a bitterly cold morning in the month when the snow creeps into the teepees, we left. Bitterly, bitterly cold. 30 came with me. We began to go home. And we knew that the government wasn't going to like it. We began to evade and to move erratically, stopping with the Otos and others. But we had nothing when we left. Soon the starvation came, the cold weather, walking. They saw our bloody footprints in the snow. We were forced to take refuge in hay bales to keep warm. At a certain point, we were literally starving and thinking we couldn't go any further. And I stood outside of a white man's house until he saw me and came to the door. I motioned that we needed sustenance. And once he took a look at my family and my followers with me, he took pity on us. He brought us corn and flour, makonsobe, coffee, things to help us along. And I knew then that Wakanda was watching out for us, and that despite all of the cruelties that we had endured, the other children of God were good too, and that there were good humans out there who felt pity for us and helped us along the way. As we began to get closer to home, we took refuge with our relatives, the Omahas. They gave us land. They gave us a place to plant our crops, and we did. But the government didn't like it. Soon they charged General Crook to arrest me and the others and to intern us at Fort Omaha. And he did. We knew he was a great enemy to indigenous peoples, one of their leaders, a general. But it became apparent to me that he saw the truth in what had happened to us. And he felt sorry for the predicament that we were in. And somehow, miraculously, even though I was a prisoner, we became friends. He would come to visit me sometimes, but that didn't look too good. So he put an extra little door in his office, and we would visit. And we spoke of our families, our trials and tribulations of life, those things that happen to all human beings. And he too took pity on me. Soon there were others that he brought into to help. There was a newspaper man, Tibbles. There were 2 lawyers, even one from that railroad company, Union Pacific, Webster and Poppleton. And for nothing, they decided to help me. At that time, they didn't know why we were being held. At that time, my people were not considered human beings under the law. And we started that process, that legal process, which I did not understand, and it took a long time and effort from many. We took that opportunity, though, to teach them about my people. What we had done, that we kept all those promises, that we became Christians and farmers, educated our children in the ways of this new world so that we could get along and make a way for ourselves. We did all those things. They heard all those things. But the lawyers from the other side, they tried to discredit me and many others. At many points, I thought we were not going to be successful. Soon, it came time. And I knew it was my time to speak. I had help from my sister from the Omaha tribe. Inchtal Omaha, Bright Eyes was her name. And she was equally fluent in our Omaha Ponca language and English. And she helped me, helped explain to me what was transpiring day by day, what I needed to do to complete this journey, not just for myself, but for others in my tribe, for other indigenous peoples, perhaps, so that we could not be held illegally and without cause. And eventually, that time came. And they asked me many questions, that judge. Finally, I spoke what was in my heart. I told him of a dream that I had over and over again. And I was back home in those waters, Ni Ubadadake, the swift running waters. And up to the sides are those high bluffs. And in my dream, I'm there with my daughter and my wife and my family. And we see down below us the river, the swift running waters are rising. And if we don't escape from them, we're going to drown. Finally, in my dream, I see there's a path to safety. And I tell my wife and my daughter and my children, we are saved if only we can get to the top. And so I take them. We get nearly to the top, and there's a man blocking my path. I told that man, that judge, you are the one blocking my path. If you let us pass, we will live and thrive again. If not, we will succumb to the waters and the rising flood, and we will perish. That hand is not the color of yours, but if I pierce it, I will feel pain. If you pierce yours, you too will feel pain. The blood that flows from both is the same. We are both made by God. Punka, Badi, Nu. I am a man. Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to tell each and every one of you, thank you for bearing with this story. Some of it's hard to hear, I know that. And I hope that we can see the common humanity in both of our lines of ancestors and where we come from, and more importantly, where we're going. Can Chief Standing Bear answer any questions? Yes, sir. The outcome of the trial, of course, we were victorious, and I was viewed as a human being under the law. Lots of things were said and transpired. As a matter of fact, Chief Standing Bear and Bright Eyes went on a tour all across these lands to share those messages. Is there something in particular that you know about what the judge said to him? I know that he cried when I shared the final part of my story. Everyone in the courtroom was moved. And for whatever reason, that speech became iconic, and it was hushed afterwards. And it took some time for him to come up with that ruling, but it allowed me to go home and to stay. And to the rest of my life, I lived until my 80s. Yes, ma'am.
Where is your son buried?
Bear Shield, those details, and as well as where the chief is actually buried, somewhere between the Niobrara and the river right above there in Ponca lands, but they do keep that a secret. There is some thoughts on where his son is buried, but both were close to the original allotment, somewhere right along the Niobrara. I'm told that my relatives within the Poncas, that the family knows, but they don't want it desecrated, Not far from here. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain your wardrobe? Is there any significance to the different items that you're wearing?
Besides, if it's really hot? Absolutely, and thanks for the question. It's always an important question. We refer to this not as a costume or Indian clothes, but rather as regalia, especially at an important occasion. And this is sort of amalgamation of the dresses, the regalia of the Omaha and the Ponca people. And I'm from the Omaha tribe, but I have Ponca ancestors as well. When we use that phrase, Ewi-Dai-Wangde, we're all related. In that case, between those two tribes, we truly are all related. And the red is symbolic of the sun, and the blue is symbolic of the moon. And I wanted to tie that into the story. My mother and I made this cap when now, well over 10 years ago, I had my first opportunity to portray Standing Bear. And we found there were very few pictures in the overall scheme of things of Standing Bear, but one of them, he had his chief's hat on. And by rights within the Omaha tribe, I have the right to wear it as well. And so this is kind of a combination of Omaha and Ponca, but they're very, very similar. The blankets and all of this are adorned with French ribbons. Goes back to the reservation era, trade cloth, which came from the English and the French, turn of the century during the trade era, Czechoslovakian beads. This tells the story of the journey of the souls that I referred to. And this is the morning star, Venus, here. And so this pattern is of the same. But I thought it was important for the chief to share these things with everyone to show what's important. The eagle feathers here, they're the ones that fly closest to God, and it carries our prayers and our good thoughts to the Creator. Yes?
How far back does your genealogy go to be related to all the other tribes around the United States?
That's an excellent question. That one story I shared was the beginning before the beginning. And after that, the first human beings from our stories, we came out of the water. and began to populate these lands. Our oldest stories say that all the Siouan-speaking peoples originated somewhere on the East Coast. There are some of those tribes that speak a similar cousin language to Omaha, Ponca, and Siouan, basically. The Biloxi tribe is still out there. But our stories say that we came through Ohio, which is Ohio, and then made our way to the Great Lakes, and then migrated all the way over. The term that we call our one tribe that was probably together 1,000 years ago, we say Degi-ha, and that's the Poncas as the head, the Omahas, the people who move against the current, Osage, children of the middle waters, Konze, the wind clans, and Quapaw, the people that move downstream. All of those, somewhere around 1,000 years ago, we began to separate, and that's where we got our names of our tribes. And found ourselves here somewhere between 1,000 and 700 years ago. There's a question down front. Yes?
I wish to apologize for the way our ancestors treated.
Well, I appreciate that. There's never enough times that we can say sorry to one another as human beings. And it's so important that we understand the true history of where we all come from so that together we can move forward in a good way. Yes, my dear friend Warren.
Once you were declared a man in court, were you able to return to your home?
Yes, the question is, once I was declared a human being, a man, under the law that I get to go home, yes, and I got to return basically to the lands near my original allotments, not far from here.
What about the reservation? Could you return there?
Yes, eventually there was a split between the Poncas that went down to Oklahoma, the southern Ponca, and all the descendants of Standing Bear became the northern Ponca. Ponca Usni, it means the cold Ponca, because they live up north. That's what we call. Yes, ma'am.
It seems that the Omaha tribe was really entwined with the Poncas, and yet they never were required to go south.
That's correct, and that's an excellent question. Why?
So I mean, I realized they were trying to make room for the Sioux to come over where the Ponca were or something.
It's a very good question. The reason why the Poncas and all the rest of the tribes that were removed was a matter of timing, and why the Omahas did not. But Omahas were so devastated by smallpox that we asked to be put on a reservation, and that was in 1854. And we escaped Trail of Tears that all the other tribes did. But the separation between the Omahas and the Poncas was probably somewhere around 300 years ago. And again, those families are so intertwined. All of us share bloodlines together, and the language is almost identical. One more I think we have time for.
Explain your connection with Bright Eyes.
Yes, the question is, what's the connection with Bright Eyes? I know she was a very talented individual, educated in both our ways, indigenous ways and the ways of the greater world here. And she had much sympathy, came from a prominent Omaha family, and decided that she would help her relatives in the Ponca tribe, and became the eyes and ears for Chief Standing Bear. And it was a lifelong friendship, and I know that Chief Standing Bear and Bright Eyes, along with Charles Tibbles, the journalist, they went all around the United States to tell this story and to try and fight other Trail of Tears. And quite arguably, they had something to do with helping the Omahas to keep from getting taken out of their homelands. One last one.
When I was a child and studying Nebraska history in the 5th grade, They talked a lot about the Pawnee Indians, but you never mentioned that tribe.
Because they were mean to the Poncas. Pawnees and the Lakota, they really picked on the Poncas, and but it was a matter of time as well. The Lakota, they were very angry with the Poncas for assuming the ways of white man, and thought we were weak, and punished us and attacked and attacked. Pawnees attacked some, but when we were really weakened, both tribes helped us with food, especially the Pawnee. Pawnees had been here much longer than the Sioux tribes. They would say they had been here 2,000 to 3,000 years before, and any of the ancient sites on these lands comes from them. But yes, there was warfare between those tribes. I believe we're out of time. Thank you again very much.
Chautauqua, we've learned about Nebraska, we've learned about our country, and we've learned about ourselves tonight, haven't we? Yeah. Thank you, Chief Standing Bear. The person portraying Chief Standing Bear is Taylor Keene. Taylor is of Omaha and Cherokee heritage. He's a full-time instructor at Creighton University and holds a bachelor's degree from Dartmouth College, as well as a master's of business administration and master of public administration from Harvard University, where he served as a fellow in the Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development. Taylor's the author of a manuscript, Rediscovering America, Sacred Geography and the Ancient Earthen Works, and An Indigenous History of Turtle Island. Taylor's also the founder of Sacred Seed, which educates and celebrates indigenous agriculture lifeways. Taylor portrayed Chief Standing Bear in The Free Land, 1862, and The Shaping of Modern America, Chautauquas, from 2012 to 15, which he visited Grand Island at that time in 2013. He's also a former member of the Nebraska Humanities Board, and we would like to thank him for that.